Welcome back. We're discussing race relations in America 1 year into the presidency of Barack Obama. I'm joined by Dr. Peniel Joseph, Professor of History at Tufts University, Deborah Dickerson, an author and blogger for Mother Jones magazine, and Charles Blow, a columnist with the New York Times. Let's get back to our topic. I want to go straight to an email that we received from South Carolina. This is from Carson True. And he writes, speaking as someone who lives in the American South, while I was enthusiastic about his election, the reality has just been, quote, more of the same. I think in some circles it has made some people more overt in their racism because now it's combined with their usual political gusto. Everyone is so busy with his blackness, no one seems to care what he's doing. It's obnoxious. Professor Joseph, I was wondering if you could answer that, and I want to go first to something that Maureen Dowd said, writing, she's a columnist at the New York Times, and she wrote about the incident where Republican Congressman Joe Wilson shouted out, "You lie," to the president while he was making a speech in Congress, and that led her to believe that some people just can't believe that a black man is president and will never accept it. So has racism in some respects become more overt now that President Obama is in the White House?
Well, certainly. I think in terms of some of the criticism against the president, we have seen that it's racially based. This doesn't mean all criticism. Some of the criticism is race neutral, and it's on purely public policy and ideological grounds. But when we think about the 9/12 movement and the birther movement and the Tea Parties and the signs that we've seen racist signs in Washington, D.C. equating the president and the First Lady to monkeys. We've seen signs that say Obama, go back to Africa. So certainly some of this criticism has been racially based.
Charles Blow, looking at something.
Jump in and say,
yes, sure, go ahead.
Could I just jump in for a second? I think we can see those people, but we can't see the people who may be a little queasy, have had a black president for a year, and have kind of breathed a sigh of relief, if only subconsciously. It's like, oh, the country won't go to rack and ruin if a black man is president, and oh, black people aren't going to rise up and murder us in our beds. So, you know, we can't ignore the Rush Limbaughs and the Pat Robertsons, but we can't ignore the people who've calmly gone along and said, okay, we can do this. It's okay. The country isn't crumbling. Let's not discount those folks.
But I think that there are quite a few people on the other side of that. I mean, I feel like, if you look at, the quantifiable measures, so you look at the number of hate crimes against black people, they've gone up since Barack Obama became a candidate quite substantially, and for every other racial group, they've gone down. When you look at, the measures of the kind of confidence that whites in particular have in different measures of the United States, whether it's the economy, in the president's ability to handle specific jobs. And yes, and some of that, it may be ideological, but it is very, very hard to suss out the ideological part of it from what part of it may be race-based or in some way include race. I was looking at a poll last week in which they asked, do you think that race is a major reason that people oppose Barack Obama's policy, a minor reason, or no reason at all? Everyone, including a majority of white people, said that they thought that it was a reason to some degree. And I think that it would be a mistake to leave this question without acknowledging that it may not, in fact, racism is rarely the primary motivating factor in anything that we do. I mean, that is the extreme racists who use it as the primary motivating factor. But it becomes a factor that is kind of mushed into the sand of the other factors and comes to the fore. And I think that is being reflected in the poll numbers that you see for the president.
All right, Charles. We don't have much time left. I want to get to the phones. We have a caller from Virginia. Oliver's calling us. Oliver, go ahead.
Thanks for having me. If we compare United States to Europe, my question is, United States went all the way. I mean, the president of the United States is from African descent, and he's black. Many U.S. military commanders are black and Africans. But in Europe, you barely see a prime minister of a European country from black or African. You barely see anyone from African descent or even from a minority who's in charge in Europe. So why this is double standard between Europe and the United States?
Well, let me go to Deborah Dickerson. The viewer makes a good point there. If that is used as a measurement, then America's made a lot of progress, hasn't it?
Yes, but I think European history is certainly not my strong suit. But I think there's two things: the historical relationship between having forcibly brought millions of people over hundreds of years to labor in your country and done to American blacks what has been done to us, and the number of people of African descent that you have in Europe. I don't know, but I'm going to guess that it's it's a much smaller number, and that historic relationship of oppression doesn't need to be addressed as much. But if I had to pick one factor, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there's got to be a huge difference in the population of people of African descent.
Okay, Deborah, we're going to have to leave it there.
Well,
we've run out of time. Thanks to all of you for joining us, and thank you for watching and being with us. Remember, you can follow the show on Facebook and see what we're up to there. You can give us your Facebook feedback, rather, on the show and post your questions and comments. On the next show, the Obama Doctrine. We examine the U.S. president's handling of key foreign policy challenges in his first year in office. Where is Washington heading on the key issues of the Middle East, Iran, and Pakistan? Make sure to tune in for that. We'll see you next time.